All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website where you can listen to the X Zone 24/7, 365, as well as the live show Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Just in case you're wondering, 24 more shopping days until Christmas. I bet you I just made everybody's day, didn't I? Fact of life, gang. It is a fact of life. Christmas is coming. And you know what that means. That means there are going to be people asking for your help for the less fortunate. So if you can dig a little deeper into your wallet to give a couple of bucks, if you can go through your pantry at home and find some cans of food that you can bring to a shelter, if you have clothing that the kids don't wear anymore or that are a little bit too small for you, snug, bring it down to a place that can use it. These are the times when we must, I'm going to say that again, where we must help each other. My guest of this hour, XO Nation, is Lyon Zagami, and he decided in 2006 to walk out from what he perceived as the criminal side of the New World Order. After 3 years of internal conflicts, he will later scribe in his books. Zagami is still at present Grand Master of the Ordo Illuminatorium Universalis, who are considered by many to be on the good side of the Vatican Illuminati, and is an official association of the order now based in Florence, Italy, and are no longer associated since 2008 with the Monte Carlo Lodge, known as the Masonic Executive Order. In 2006, he started a small blog that quickly became popular on the web concerning his direct involvement with the New World Order and the secret societies commonly known as the Illuminati. Joining me now is Lyon Zagami. And Leo, welcome back to the X Zone, my friend. Great having you with us.
Great to be again with you guys, and I hope we will have a great show tonight.
Whenever you're on, we have a great show. Whenever you're on.
Oh, for sure. We have a lot of things that happened since we last talked. The world stage is transforming fast. In fact, and the last time we talked, we actually spoke a lot of Pope Francis, yes, and what was going on with that book, which I also wrote, which is Pope Francis, the Last Pope ? This time, instead, the world events, actually in Confessions Volume 1, end up with a whole chapter dedicated to Turkey. And it's actually manifesting right now in front of our eyes, just as I forecasted in the book.
Let me ask you something, Leo. When people think of the Illuminati, they think of that movie Tom Hanks was in. What was it called? Oh, my gosh, the first one.
Yes, the movie was Angel and Demons, based on the book of Dan Brown.
Right.
In fact, he was also then earlier on in another movie called The Da Vinci Code, based on another book by Dan Brown, which had the secret society called the Priory of Zion. We can say that both the Priory of Zion and the Illuminati are all part of this old mystery school tradition. And of course, the fictitious version of the Priory of Zion was much older than the real one, which was only born in the 50s, and it was connected to Gladio and the anti-communism. So we have in the secret societies a mix of strong political currents which are manipulated from inside these lodges of Freemasonry, these transnational lodges that then erupt in these secret societies which just do politics. Since 1776 with Adam Weishaupt, secret societies really got a little bit more political, because he devised a system in the Illuminati or Adam Weishaupt. There was a system to manipulate and to infiltrate other organizations like Freemasonry, but also like political organizations. So we can say that even the cells of terrorism these days are based on the concepts that were put forward first by the Illuminati and by Adam Weishaupt.
Is the Illuminati the man behind the curtain? Is the Illuminati actually running the world?
The Illuminati, as I intended in my book, Confessions of the Illuminati, Volume 1, like I say very clearly, and this is so people don't get it wrong, also historians that might be following us, is not only the Illuminati of Adam Weishaupt born in 1776, but all those many factions that were said to be the 1,000 factions of the Illuminati, these old mystery schools that can be both present here in the West, like also in the East, and in the end, they all seem to be representing a common denominator, which is the elite of the aristocracy, of the royalty, and of course of the economic powers. They exist, they are in charge of this project, which then with the United Nations comes together, and it's now manifesting fully with what we're seeing in front of our eyes, which is an increasing police state of the West, which is becoming more and more controlled, because they have also managed to build up, like I write in Volume 1 of my Confessions, the whole, let's say, opposition constructed of this Islamic fundamentalists, which was crafted in the agencies of intelligence, and in the 70s kind of was then spread through the Quranic schools, so then they could take out this old myth of the Ashashins of Hassani Sabah, which was an old the sect of Ismaili Muslims, and then rebring it back into what was at the time in the 70s quite a moderate form of Islam, prevalent in all shapes of Islam, both Shia, Sunnis, and all the rest were kind of moderate. And then suddenly we started seeing the fundamentalist element coming in. This was processed in the MK Ultra sort of laboratories for the mind, for the transformation, for the control, psychological operation battalions that basically created and crafted this terrorism that now, of course, is only helping the military-industrial complex, because Friday the 13th is not a date that is being chosen just by chance. Friday the 13th in France and then in the rest of the world became synonymous of a bad day, a bad date, no? But it was born with the Knights Templar persecution that back in 1307, basically on Friday the 13th, they all got arrested, these Knights Templars. They started a persecution against this order. So this date is, let's say, very particular date that they have chosen for this operation. From people that actually were in Paris then, during those hours, and have reported to me directly, I was able to know that these terrorists were completely dragged up with substances, and of course they were not shouting any Allahu Akbar. They were completely robots in the hands of their manipulators. And even the brother of one of the terrorists and other people have said that we're talking here about a manipulation, a mind control, of course, that is operated on these people. That's not saying that Islamic fundamentalism doesn't exist. Unfortunately, now it exists and is prevalent in society, because the Wahhabi, which are basically the countries which have the oil, are able to finance this Sunni element. And they have created this great, gigantic state of thugs and terrorists, which is flooding oil through Turkey. But this is not now, in the last few hours, Russia is actually giving evidence of this. But I already wrote it in my book, Pope Francis, the Last Pope, that was written more than a year ago, that Turkey was working actively with ISIS and using and importing their petrol. I mean, these are things that I have actually written, so people can see that in my books, these people of the various lodges, including Erdogan, which is a member of the same lodge, in which you have also al-Baghdadi, which is the head of ISIS. So all this is part of a well-crafted operation to implement the New World Order, which then today and in the next few days is having another milestone with Agenda 2030, which is a follow-up of Agenda 21, which is taking place with this sort of climate change, which is actually hiding as I said, another milestone for the New World Order.
Are we going to see more terror with ISIS? And why, why do the countries just not stop the influx of refugees from ISIS countries, especially Syria? Well, and just keep them in Syria, put a no-fly zone up, allow the different military forces to protect the refugees there, annihilate ISIS, wipe them off the face of the earth, and then allow the people to go back home.
This is easy to say if you didn't have Turkey with the open borders. They don't want to do that. I mean, Russia has required Turkey to do that, but they don't do that because there is this great interest when it comes down to oil. Yeah. And the money that it's processed is then used to buy weapons. Now these weapons go through certain ports in Europe, and there is a lot of interest of money, and it's to do also with the military-industrial complex. We have seen that since the 13th of November, the actual military-industrial complex and all those companies who sell weapons have made 100% more than what they were doing before, a month ago. So here we're talking about a lot of money generated, of course, by the strategy of tension that is working very well for these people. It's very sad to see that, of course, this is happening, but we have to understand that ISIS is being created when between 2003 and 2009, this project is being harbored and created and crafted by the CIA within those prisons, which were used as mind control camps, but also as a recruiting ground for this new project of the caliphate.
All right, so let me understand this. You're saying that ISIS was created by the CIA?
It was created also with the help of Mossad and with the support of the Emirates, and of course, without this great support of the Emirates and the Wahhabis, there could not be also, let's say, the ideological certainty that this thing will go through, because in a way the West, meaning the US, knew that they were pulling, on a weakness of the situation. The weakness of the situation is that, of course, once Saddam was taken out, the majority that took the power there became the Shiite. The Shiites are the enemy of the Sunni. This is a war that goes on since the time of when Muhammad died, and his cousin Ali didn't accept the fact that Abu Bakr, the first caliph, was nominated. So basically created a two dividing faction right at the beginning of Islam, and that war is perpetrating up until nowadays. And the countries are Iran, Shiite, Syria, of course, like Iraq was before, in the hands of, let's say, like Saddam Hussein was part of the Ba'ath Party, and the Ba'ath Party remnants is in Syria with Assad. Now, the Ba'ath Party guaranteed a laicity of the state, so that there wasn't any prevailing faction. The same happened at the time when Mubarak was actually active in Egypt, and I used to go visit there in Egypt, guested by the Boutros Ghali family, the family of the ex-Secretary General of the United Nations, who in turn it's a Coptic Christian family, and everybody was living in equilibrium thanks to these dictators in the Middle East. The moment in which the West decided to break this equilibrium with the Arab Springs, that was simply the way to break these balances, and then at that point take over illegitimately and illegally their oil in those countries, which of course have been like Libya, like part of Syria, Iraq, now given in the hands of what are the New World Order mercenaries, because these people simply pick up the stuff and then sell it to the West. There is somebody's buying this oil, and we are part of the problem, because of course we have to accept that we live in a situation of compromise. The moment in which we have people from Saudi Arabia financing these terrorists, at the same time they're financing one or the other side of the Republican or the Democratic Party in the US, we know that there is something wrong here, because there is too much connections where there shouldn't be these connections. So then the US can't really attack ISIS, can't destroy ISIS, because they have helped created it, and because it's protected by Saudi Arabia, so by the Wahhabis. So the only ones who can actually inflict an attack that is a real attack is Russia, because Russia in the last few years, since 2012, 2013, has started to break the equilibrium, because they are not accepting the new world order crafted by the US at their own advantage. Here we're not saying that Russia is outside of this new world order context, because everybody is part of this new world order. Because, as I said, in the United Nations, that's where the ultimate seed of the new world order resides, and that's where all the nations meet up on the level, because it is a Masonic institution. It was created by Freemasonry, the United Nations, so it has a certain rules for the universality of this thing.
Okay, as far as President Obama is concerned, what's his role in all of this?
Sorry, I have a little bit of cough today. Obama is, just like an agent, an ex-CIA agent, a very clever one, a very adventurous one, who in any way is pushed by a certain lobby within the intelligence, which is not, of course, the Republican conservative one, but the Democratic one, because we sometimes think about the CIA or these kind of intelligence institutions as being non-political, but they each have their own political side to it, And so he pushes for the liberal Jesuit agenda, let's say, the one that is now prevailing in this new world order, the one that goes hand in hand also with the Zionist, and that is materializing this Third World War, because in any case, everything is pushing towards a materialization of the prophecies. So this is unfortunately what is happening. They're pushing the buttons so that these prophecies can manifest. And ISIS is part of the problem. They are a highly apocalyptic cult. The name of their magazine is dedicated to this. I mean, it's all based on this. They are now operating from a land which is said to become the land of the Antichrist. And in their eyes, they instead are the ones who are fighting the Antichrist, which is for them in Rome with the Vatican. So what's happening now is that the next move is attacking the Vatican, attacking Rome, because this is the center of Christianity. Before then, of course, arriving into Israel, and that, of course, if that happened, then there would be a clash of apocalyptic proportions that we know very well could be the one of the end of times.
It's, let's see, just today Russia has moved in missiles into Syria, and this has got the allies of Turkey very nervous, because Turkey seems to be provoking Russia.
Russia is an Orthodox country. Orthodox Christianity has not yet agreed fully to become part of this one world religion context which they have been setting up in the last few years. This world religion that they want to craft all together, it's a religion that sometimes is too compromised, and of course it's destroying the divinity of the Pope by getting a Pope out of the way and putting another one, and doing all kinds of things to destroy the credibility, for example, of the Catholic Church, but of all the religions, because think about the damage that ISIS or other terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda do to the image of the Islamic faith. Right. And at the same time, think about the damage that the the Zionists that go and kill the Palestinians due to their own faith, the Jewish faith. So the Abrahamic religions are completely compromised by a manipulative, well-crafted move by these transnational lodges and by a new world order that, of course, operates with secret societies that don't really care. They just want at the end to achieve a mean. So they don't care how they're going to achieve this mean, as long as they achieve it.
So in this big play that we see playing out between ISIS, the Islamic followers, and the West, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys?
Well, actually, ISIS is created by us.
Right.
So
we're fighting ourselves?
We are fighting ourselves to produce more weapons, to make more money, to keep the whole sick system going on with the usual banks, the usual interest, and of course the oil that keeps being pumped by the usual countries that I told you already. They're financing not only terrorism in an active way financially, but they're even financing their drugs. Captagon, which is the drug used by ISIS fighters. Right,
it's a very strong amphetamine.
I know, and it's been they stopped somebody who was a Saudi prince with thousands of tons of it.
Yep.
And this demonstrates that they're in the whole thing. The U.S., of course, timidly said, "Oh, but that was for our own fighters, not for ISIS."
Right.
What does that mean? That our own fighters have to take a drug which has an amphetamine to go and kill people? I mean, it's completely out of order what they're doing. They're playing with fire here. You understand?
Sure. Well, President Obama drew a red line in the sand twice, and twice he backed off. And it seems that after Russia saw that the President of the United States was weak, that he backed away from Syria. That's when everything started to happen.
You intend what? That Obama was weak, and so
he's very weak. He's a very weak man.
He's doing exactly what his handlers are telling him to do. I mean, these days, you have to understand that these people who seemingly are in charge, and we're talking about heads of the various nations,
right.
If they're not real heads, like, for example, Assad is a real head, Putin is a real head, these people actually have their country, their power of their country in their hands because they come from a different kind of situation, which is a dictatorship situation. Well, you don't control anything. You are controlled by lobbies, you're controlled by interests, you're controlled by Soros. That's why the first thing that now Russia is doing in the last 48 hours is to block all the interests of Soros in Russia, outlawing them. Soros is the major financier of the Orange Revolutions and the Ukraine push towards also against Russia. Soros is one of the most evil people on the planet, together with Kissinger, together with Rockefeller. These people basically can really manipulate the power of the whole planet because they have the banks in their hands. They don't only have the states, the political aspect. As I said, the political aspect is very relative, especially in the West. So Obama is not only weak because he is a weak person himself. I mean, he's been chosen for this weakness. We have to understand that most democratic presidents have been chosen because they are weak. They have something that, maybe sexually.
I don't know. I don't think President Kennedy was weak. I don't think. Pardon?
President Kennedy he had his weaknesses.
Well,
we can't say that he didn't. He wasn't a saint.
Doesn't everyone walking this planet have weaknesses?
No, but the problem is with him that, of course, the reality, he denounced this reality. He didn't even have the time to object to this reality that they killed him. So, I mean, he was just a victim of the situation. He didn't really manage to do much, as you know. The other ones, like Clinton, he had too many things to hide. Like Hillary has too many things to hide. Obama has too many things to hide. And these things, we're not talking about little things, but big things. So it's not just, running off with another woman. We're talking about really big stuff that if comes out will ruin forever the image not only of him as a president, but of the presidency as an office. So
all right, you say that Pope Francis is going to be the last pope. Why?
Pope Francis is the last pope because apart from a series of prophecies that coincide with him being this last pope, there is also a calculation made on the fact that because the New World Order is destroying the divinity of the popes, making them resign, with this pope here, we have seen that he's not really willing to use anymore that pope imprint and is more becoming the Bishop of Rome. So this pope is already not anymore a conventional pope, and with this pope, let's say, the divinity of the pope, because the other one resided and is being forced to resign, because we have evidence that is being also published in Italy, left by a witness, a Jesuit secretary of Cardinal Martini, who was this important Jesuit cardinal, who basically told the Ratzinger, now you have to resign. And this was witnessed, that the Jesuit forced, because Martini then was the main supporter of Bergoglio already in 2005 when there were the elections of Ratzinger. So they had a secret group that used to meet up in Switzerland from the Vatican, and this group was actually used to call themselves the Mafia Boys. Imagine a bunch of cardinals calling themselves the Mafia Boys. Now, what has been coming out in the last few months in Rome with all the scandals in the Vatican has demonstrated that everything I wrote in my book is not only correct, but I also denounce, for example, the penthouse of Cardinal Bertone, who, of course, stole the money of the hospital for the poor children to build up his penthouse. All this stuff, and then he has a palace where on the first floor there is the biggest gay sauna in Italy, and the priests go in from one side, and then they go in the gay on the other, and then in the evening they all meet together in the gay sauna. All these truths that now, of course, are shocking. When I brought them out, I started to bring them out in 2006 with Greg Zismansky on the Arctic Beacon. People not only thought we were crazy, but we received also threats. I was arrested for espionage in Norway. I mean, things got really bad. And now, finally, they're coming out in the open, and people can see that what I wrote was actually correct, what I said was true. And this it's relieving. But what I'm seeing is that the Vatican doesn't have much left before it actually ends up completely. So this is definitely the last pope of the Vatican as we know it, because ISIS wants to attack the Vatican within the month between the month of December to the month of March. You understand that if something like a big, and I repeat, a big bomb hits the Vatican, what will happen in the world?
Total chaos.
That's what they want.
Total chaos.
So at that point, you will see that the apocalyptic vision and understanding ISIS barbarism is not anymore, because what they do here, I tell you the truth, I am not really a person who goes to mass on a Sunday, all that rubbish. No. I mean, I respect people who do it. It's great. If you have faith, great. But what I do is I have a lot of faith in my geopolitical analysis. When I overlapped with the prophecies in the last few years, I saw that they actually coincided. At that point, I started to, because of course I have my faith. I believe that actually my relationship with God has to be personal, because I am simply watching that the institution on this planet of whatever religions, they are all corrupt. So the best way possible to relate with God is not through another person, but it's through yourself at this point.
All right, Leo, please stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Always great talking to you, my good friend. Listen, Leo, what is your website?
Well, the website is actually CCC Publishing, the website of my publisher, which is bringing out my books. And so we have also coming up lyonzagami.com, which will reopen soon in the next couple of months. But is probably we're going to have to wait after the Christmas vacations for that.
All right, but Exonation for right now, we had Brad Olson on the show Friday. We were telling you that Leo was coming on tonight. So for more information on Leo, visit cccpublishing.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. The X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And Leo and I will be back on the other side of this news break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wieka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wieka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co. Began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea's star does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Star does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Star or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond. Welcome back, everybody. We've got a little bit of a contest that we're going to be holding here at the X-Zone. On December the 15th, what I'd like you to do is record your favorite Christmas carol and send it to us at X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com, and we will play it on air. Now, we're going to take votes throughout the Christmas season, and on January the 6th, we'll announce the winner. We are going to have a great bunch of prizes. And once again, send us your Christmas carol on an MP3 file and send it to X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, Lyon Zagami is our special guest. And if you'd like to know more about Leo, if you'd like to order his books, go to cccpublishing.com. Leo, let me ask you, in what way is the Illuminati and Freemasonry involved in the Vatican affairs?
Well, they are basically one part of the other, in the sense that Freemasonry was born within the Vatican hundreds of years ago, because the Freemasonry is born within those co-structors the first constructors of cathedrals, of churches, constructing these holy places took a certain degree of knowledge. This knowledge was preserved then with this first kind of corporations that had an initiation that was transmitted and became then later on Freemasonry. Also, Freemasonry is partly, some say, also descendant of the Knights Templars, and so we know also that part of the story. So they are kind of intermingling with each other since ancient times. Then, of course, in the open, they seem to be conflictual, but there is at least 4 lodges of Freemasonry that operate in the Vatican since the end of the Second World War, and they've been chartered originally by the UK, and now they are under the direct control of the Duke of Kent. So there is also cardinals who practice Freemasonry in the Vatican.
Who are the secret chiefs, invisible masters, unknown superiors behind the secret societies? And tell me, how are they connected to the UFO phenomenon and the prophecies?
Yes, this is a subject I touch with an entire chapter in my new book, Volume 1, and it's very important to understand what they really are, because the walls of Gog and Magog, have the wall that was kind of protecting us from these herds of demons has been breaking further and further, and so they are coming in. How all this happened? What are these entities? These demonic entities that have been evoked and have been brought from these other dimensions, they appear to us as alien beings. We call them alien beings. In reality, they are extra-dimensional beings. Some of them come also from very far in our universe. Of course, there is extra-dimensional doors and gates that are created with these rituals and are in specific sacred places. What we are doing now on this planet is basically being subject to what they are dictating to their followers, who are in turn the chiefs of the various secret societies, because every secret society that is powerful enough has a direct contact with these entities, and of course some of them even have a privileged link due to the fact that they have been sacrificing animals or even human beings from ancient times, because the practices in ancient times of sacrifice to these beings that were done, like the Aztec, the Maya, or in Africa, to these beings have been done because it kind of pleases them, and these are, of course, what we call the Anunnaki, what they call, then you can call them also the result of it all. You can call them also the Watchers, the Nephilim. All that is part of the same root that comes from somewhere else and has created us as, of course, a creation of somebody else. We are also supervised and monitored constantly from, let's say, more evolved species than us, and that, of course, don't intervene directly, but from time to time upgrade our system. Also, thanks to people like, can be Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was a great occultist who had contact with this invisible master, with this secret chief. Not all the time we go on the dark side. There is also entities of lights, Elohim, we can say, angels, and these beings of light, of course, are the ones who talked to Moses and gave him the testament. I mean, that is, of course, different from a demonic entity. That is a very powerful, a much more powerful thing. So there is, of course, these differences, but we are dealing with entities here, and our perception of monotheism is very different from the reality of things, because there is a whole hierarchy before you actually arrive to the top of the pyramid, where of course you have the great architect, the God, the all-seeing eye, but you have a whole pyramid of hierarchical structure which includes both demons and angels, and these manifest. That's why in 1945-47 there was a very particular period in history, and after that we started to manifest what you now know as ufology with Roswell. The same day, there was a group, I talk about this in my volume 1 of my confessions, and this, I don't know if you remember in 2011 when the Vault released a certain number of documents, the FBI released a certain number of documents, and there was amongst these documents evidence that the UFO are extra-dimensional beings, but it wasn't really an FBI document. It was a document belonging to a group called Borderland Science Research Association.
Let me ask you something here. How do we know that these dimensional beings and entities are real and not the result of overactive imaginations? How do we know they're real?
Personally, myself, because I have the opportunity to see them at least once in my life, and that was pretty much an experience that I would like not to repeat, because it got me breathless and it got me really shocked, and I couldn't really act, I couldn't really move really, and that was the other bad thing, that their power is so much superior to us. In this case, it was a being of light, which I encountered was 1993, and I still remember it nowadays. But if I have to talk for other people, my take on the UFO phenomenon, which I want to make you knowledgeable about with my book, is a different take, because I actually show you that the history of ufology is connected directly to these secret societies. For example, the Mount Palomar Observatory used to be a lodge of the OTO before it became the Mount Palomar Observatory. Jack Parsons was a NASA member. The jet propulsion, basically. He helped creating the early form of NASA. He was an important figure in this OTO, together after with also Ron Hubbard, that created Scientology. The BSRA, which I was talking before, which released this document, which you can find in the FBI vault at vault.fbi.gov. This document is very important because the date is July 8, 1947. I mean, it's not any date. And how comes a group like this, made of initiates, because there was Maid Lane, this is a group of, BSRA is basically a secret society, and part of the Illuminati network. The Royal Order of Tibet, created by George Adamski, was a secret society. They came from a background which was a Theosophical society. There was the Servants of Light. How comes that George Adamski or these people were all involved in contacts with entities, and they're all involved in the occult?
Maybe they had nothing better to do. Maybe they saw a little niche in the market that they would get their 15 minutes of fame.
No, like because George Adamski was in NASA.
George Adamski said a lot of things that were never proven.
Sure, absolutely.
So he was a liar. He was a guy who lived in a world of fantasy.
No, but I'm not talking so much of George Adamski. I'm talking about the background of the people that joined him in the Royal Order of Tibet, just as this group called BSRA and Maid Lane, which I invite you to go and check out, Borderland Science Research Association, which now is called BSRF and is still in existence, and with their own, the ambience in which these groups operate is usually academic world. Right. It's not your average Joe in the New Age scene. You understand? But these are people, some of them are military, some intelligence, some are people in the academic world. When you start having people in Freemasonry, in a lodge of Freemasons, that then do experiments, or in a paramasonic organization like the Ordo Templi Orientis, indulging in experiments with these entities, they're not just doing it because they are just doing it. Himmler was not just a guy who was...
Okay, so let me ask you, if the world is so corrupt, if there's so much going against humanity, what's it all for? What's it about? Who wins what?
It's not against humanity.
What is it?
We have a perception that humanity is all the same. They have a perception that humanity instead is separated in different categories, where the privileged individual has certain rights and the underprivileged doesn't have them. This is simply what happens.
So we're talking about a pecking order.
It's like you have maybe a clear example in India where still you have, let's say, a society very primitive, so you can actually go and trace back their customs 3,000 years and stay the same, and where society is actually still divided in a way where, for example, the ones on top can't marry with the ones below, the outcasts are just like considered, and there is then the privileged ones that can go back 3,500 years in their elitist structure. This is how it works, really. I mean, if you think about it, the people who are ruling the planet, even your own country, is a queen which is based in England, which is actually not even English, but is half a bit English and Scottish, but is also very German, very Hanoverian, which is called Queen Elizabeth II. And I don't think that, maybe people know, but Queen Elizabeth, apart from being one of the richest people of the world, is also the one who owns the most of the uranium, the nuclear power of this planet. So,
all right. So I we're coming up to our time very fast here.
So
I just want to get back to one thing you said earlier. The CIA, the American CIA, created ISIS.
Yes, I made a whole chapter actually on the CIA, on the craft of intelligence in my book, Volume 1, where I described also a very interesting link which there is with certain Jesuit universities and the CIA, and then the work that they do within the study and the practice of these psychological operations. When you see they had to bring out this new thing, at the beginning the CIA started, if you remember, experimenting with drugs after the Second World War, and LSD was prevalent in
MK Ultra.
Okay? Sure.
Yeah.
Then that experiment didn't really work out that well. But in the same time, amongst this milieu of occultists, of intelligence office and people, sprang up an idea from two eccentrics that used to be in the intelligence. One of them was actually in the Canadian intelligence. It was Brian Geisen. The other one was in the American one. It was William Burroughs. These two people took a very old myth, which was the myth of Hassani Sabah, the old man of the mountain, the assassin, and they made it fashionable for the beat world. These people were the people who were at the beat hotel. These people are the people who gave birth to the beatniks. We're talking about here about culture. William Burroughs was the author of Naked Lunch. We're not talking about anybody. These two people were really working, and they were living in a very particular moment in history, in which they took this myth in a way maybe as an eccentric, Burroughs was very eccentric in his ways and the way, and then they made it fashionable in the intelligence world, and then the next thing you know is that people like Michael Aquino, people who are really very sick in their head, but also very skilled in psychological operation, took the Quran and saw, wow, man, this book works better than 100 LSDs. If you know how to manipulate the surahs of this book in half an hour, you can brainwash a guy and send him to kill himself. So this is how it worked. Once during the Carter administration, there was Bush as head of the CIA.
Right.
He just came back from China, where he had also done a very important operation for the New World Order. He was, of course, very powerful. He started really this operation. And, of course, Zbigniew Brzezinski, he went there in Afghanistan. There was also a guy called Osama bin Laden, who was, of course, a CIA agent, as we all know, and was put in this position of becoming the new man of the mountain, the new Hassani Sabah. But this worked out up until, of course, they had to retire this whole project because they needed a new one, a more apocalyptic one, in league with the prophecies. So then you see the difference between Al-Qaeda and ISIS is that ISIS can't exist without a state, because if you take away the place where they're based, they can't have the caliphate. So they can't call themselves caliphate anymore if they're not in those places. Okay? While instead, Al-Qaeda can simply go underground and stay there. So there is a two different way of these two realities. And until people in the US and elsewhere don't understand that ISIS is an apocalyptic cult, just like you had apocalyptic cults suiciding themselves, as you remember. You remember the famous ones that were waiting for the UFO in the US many years ago. Well, ISIS has this kind of methodology. Mm-hmm. ISIS is pushing the buttons for the ultimate apocalypse. So I think it's quite clear.
But if it's ISIS that is pushing for the ultimate apocalypse. Now, wait a sec. Then, based on what you said earlier, the CIA created ISIS, then it's the U.S. government that is pushing for the apocalypse.
Because then it coincides, my friend. Because then, once they push on one side, the Christian fundamentalists push on the other, and the Jews also want this Messiah to come back, they all join together, and basically they all want the same thing. They're materializing the prophetic end of times.
All right, but throughout history, the prophetic end of times have been heralded to be coming.
But we never had this technology.
Well, that's right. But what happens, like you said earlier, between December and March, there's going to be an attack on Rome, on the Vatican. What happens if there is no attack? What happens if ISIS is defeated? What does that mean about prophecies?
I would love to see that, and I would love to come on your show and say that I'm the biggest idiot. Unfortunately,
I don't want you to say that. I'm just asking you.
Because I was in the Vatican the other day with my friends who are the heads there of the police security and the inspector at the Vatican to go and visit them and just give them a word, of encouragement. But I know that when the shit hits the fan, I'm sorry to say, but we're gonna be in big trouble.
But what happens if it doesn't?
As I said, then I will be very happy.
You and me both, my friend. Hey, listen, Leo, we've got to say so long for tonight. But listen, let our listeners know once again the name of your books and where they can get them.
Well, there is Pope Francis, the Last Pope question mark that has been out for a few months on CCC Publishing. The same also publishing company has brought out now a new book, which is Confessions, Volume 1, Illuminati Confessions. And in these Illuminati Confessions, you basically, the truth has to set you free. In the Bible, it says really the truth has to be proclaimed. All these secrets have to be taken away. We don't need secrets in the end of times. We need clarity. We need to have clarity. That by having clarity, we can raise our consciousness and finally know where we are before then what will happen between 2020 and 2030, which unfortunately will probably eliminate 3/4 of the population of this planet. We need to at least know where we are.
It's a pretty grim outlook. It's like, why bother do anything if we're just going to be schmucked away?
Because we need to plant the seeds for the next civilization. This one is finished. But we can't have the next civilization coming in without laying the basis.
Interesting times, an interesting gentleman, an interesting hour. Thank you so much, Leo, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
I look forward to the next time you come and visit us here. You take care of yourself, my friend.
Thanks.
Bye-bye now. Exo Nation, what an hour this was. I've got to tell you something that my head is still reeling. Because, let me see here. ISIS was formed by the CIA. Okay. There's going to be an attack on the Vatican between December and March that will herald in the end times. Are we in the end times? Food for thought. What do you think? Send me your email, exxon@exxonradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, if you'd like to find out more about Lyon Zagami, visit www.cccpublishing.com. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, and I'll be back as we continue to investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology and much more, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight. Now, Exonation, we are going to be taking a break between Wednesday, December the 2nd. And let me see, a week later, so that's Wednesday, December the 9th. We'll be back live on December the 10th. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone.